this idea that cholesterol caused heart disease did not come up independently from a researcher that said, "Ooh, I think this is it." It was brought about by the sugar companies. They invented this, and then they found people like Ansel Keys and other professors from other prestigious universities like Harvard and elsewhere that were corrupt enough and corruptible enough that they could pay them off to push this narrative and just make that their life's work of just pushing and cranking down cholesterol as the cause of heart disease, when in their own documents, they recognize that it's probably there. It's probably their product, and they needed to muddy the water. So that's not supposition. That's not conjecture. That's not somebody's blog post where they accused, sugar companies of doing this. That's reported in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2016, one of the top medical journals in the world, JAMA. And it's not just someone reporting this. It's the publication of the Sugar Research Foundation's own internal documents where they, in their own words, spelled this out. That they, in this particular publication in 2016, it has internal memos detailing how they paid off 3 Harvard professors to falsify data and publish fraudulent studies and opinion pieces saying that cholesterol caused heart disease when it was much more likely to be sugar. And to exonerate sugar, say it was safe, it was just an empty calorie. That's where that phrase comes from. And one of those professors was named head of the USDA. And he was the one who authored and published the USDA declaration saying that cholesterol caused heart disease. Saturated fat, increased cholesterol. Stop eating both. And people did. Once it came from a top-down directive from the government saying, "Oh, these are the guidelines. This is what the government says," and the government's been so good to us for so long. Well, we've gotten a bit naive. We founded America based on the mistrust of people in power and the government, and we wanted to limit them and hold them accountable for the things that they do, and basically limit their power so that they really couldn't, sell their power and influence. We had that for about 150 years. Then all of a sudden, that the brakes and the restrictions started coming off with the Great Depression. Woodrow Wilson, FDR started opening things up, and we had special interests and lobbyists started coming in, because before that they couldn't sell their interests, they couldn't sell their power because the federal government didn't have access to funds like they do now. They weren't allowed to use it for special interests until the 1930s. Now they can just give money to whoever for whatever reason that they want. And now everybody, hey, why don't I give you $1 million for your campaign, and you give my company $1 billion for this whatever special interest, or 100 million or millions and things like that. There's a massive return on investment. Some economists like Thomas Sowell have estimated that it's 1,000 to 1 return on investment lobbying politicians. That you pay them, X amount, you'll get 1,000-fold back in taxpayer money. So, we forgot that, and we got a bit comfortable in that things were working so well, and we just didn't see this corruption get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so all of a sudden in the late 1970s, 1980s, the government saying, "Stop eating cholesterol. Cholesterol causes heart disease." People are like, well, why would they lie? They wouldn't let people say. They wouldn't say that unless it was true. They wouldn't let them say that. And people hear this. Someone says something on TV. Well, they wouldn't let them say that on TV if it wasn't true. Who do you think is policing this? And how the hell would they know? How do they know who's the arbiter of truth? Is just someone in the government just knows everything?
Someone else getting paid.
That's it. Just we have Jesus in office, and obviously he knows who's lying and who's not, and he's not going to let that go on and all that sort of stuff. These are people, and people are corruptible, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so when you're talking about multi-billion, now multi-trillion-dollar industries, there's a lot of money to go around. I did a lecture at a conference just recently and talked about a lot of these sorts of things, the rise in the chronic disease rates, but also the rise in medical expenditures on these things. We are spending trillions of dollars treating these things. It's estimated about $13 to $14 trillion a year worldwide treating these so-called chronic diseases, these non-communicable chronic diseases. We spend over $2 trillion a year on respiratory diseases like COPD. We spend trillions on cancer and heart disease. Just the top five, just these top five, we spend around 13 to 14 trillion dollars a year treating this stuff, right? And then you're losing out on tens of trillions of dollars in lost production. It's estimated between 2010 and 2030 that we'll lose out on $47 trillion worth of productivity from people just being sick and not being able to just get on with their life and just live their normal life and just work or whatever. And then, another $20 trillion is going to be lost in that time period from, early death, right? So just from, lost production wise, that's obviously, no one's getting that money, that's just not being produced. But that $14 trillion a year, and that was just in 2010. It's estimated to go up much more than that by 2030. So those trillions of dollars every single year, those are going to buying products and pharmaceuticals and equipment and hospital stays and all these sorts of stuff. This is big, big, big business. And so people, companies, corporations, governments are receiving those trillions of dollars. And now there's trillions of dollars for your marketing campaign and your lobbyists to then go and push your agenda to make sure that people just keep getting sicker. And I think that's actually what's happening. There's a guy named Callie Means who's a whistleblower for the big food and big pharma. And he said that the the food companies know, the processed food companies know, which are all processed plant foods, which is why you're getting all this plant-based, because they're the ones putting out the studies on that. The sugar companies, the Coca-Colas, the Pepsis, the Kellogg's, and all these sorts of things, they put out the vast majority of spending on nutritional research. And it's all going in one direction. Sugar's safe, seed oils are good, plant-based is the way to go because that's their products, right? And so we have to be skeptical of this sort of stuff. And they're also the ones, paying off politicians and all these sorts of things as well. So we have to be very careful about this. We have to be very mindful and careful and understand where this research is coming from and who are the people pulling the strings, and that all this money, these trillions of dollars, are going to big pharma and big manufacturers, and that's not even the cost for the food in the first place. We're spending trillions of dollars on this food that's making us sick, and then many multiples more trillions of dollars treating that illness. And Callie Means said that publicly, openly, that the food companies know that their food is making people sick, it's causing metabolic disease and damage and cardiovascular disease and obesity and all these other things. And he said, and that they're happy about that because they then profit off the back end because they sell us these drugs and these metformins and the Ozempics and the statins and everything like that we use to treat these problems. And he said, I know they know this because I've been in the boardroom meetings with them when they said it. Right. And so,
he wrote a great thread on that on Twitter. Sorry to interrupt. He laid this whole story out, and I'll put it in the show notes because it's fascinating.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is. And it's something that people have suspected for a very long time and be like, they have to know. And of course they did know. We have this, this JAMA report from the sugar industry, from Sugar Research Foundation decades ago, talking about how they manufactured this crisis on heart disease in the first place, or on cholesterol and causing heart disease in the first place. They manufactured this, right? So did they just forget? Was it just one guy, and then they just everybody? That guy left, and he's no longer here anymore. No, of course they know, because when some people comes in, they replace one guy, they learn what's going on, they continue moving the machine. Then some guy gets replaced, and some woman comes in, and some other guy comes in, and it just replaces out, and you have all new pieces and players, but they're all playing the same game. They're all perpetuating the same system. And they were doing this for decades. They were paying off researchers and politicians and people for decades to push this narrative. And so, that's still going on. They know about this. We learned about the tobacco companies and how they were saying for decades, oh, no. Tobacco's safe. It's not addictive. Our studies show that it doesn't cause cancer. It makes your hair grow and your teeth whiter and all this. I mean, they just made things up because but I have a study here. Oh, and that's what this said. Yeah, but you made up the study. It's a garbage study. And then they had leaked documents of their internal memos, like the JAMA memos from the sugar companies, showing that no, they damn well knew that this stuff was toxic and addictive and causing cancer, and they were lying about it, and they lied on they perjured themselves in front of Congress. So they got like a $400 billion fine, I think it was. But who cares? I mean, they made trillions in that time, and people died because of that. Well, why the hell wasn't it a criminal charge? Why was it just civil? Why did they just get a penalty? They got away for 30 years or more putting out a product that they knew was killing people and causing cancer. So how is that not at least manslaughter or reckless endangerment or murder? They're knowingly putting out a product that they know can kill people. And yet they're trying to market this to younger and younger and younger people. These are just drug dealers. These are just drug cartels. They're just legal drug cartels. It's the same exact tactics. You hook them young, you hook them early, and then you have a client for life. And that's what they're trying to do. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. Right, they're trying to do that with tobacco. I mean, I remember as a kid they had candy cigarettes. It was bubble gum with like a piece of paper wrapped around it, and they had powdered sugar in there, and you blow it, go like that, and this puff of powdered sugar would come out. And I was like, oh, it's cool. Oh, it looks like I have a cigarette, And it was like, but why would you think that that's cool? They're trying to make it look cool and make kids think that smoking was cool. And that was actually the purpose. They leaked boardroom meetings as well from the sugar companies saying, hey, let's try to market this to kids and make candy cigarettes and things like that so they'll think that cigarettes are cool and it's candy and it's great. They actually did that. And I saw it. I bought them once. And, I remember having them. And so, that is knowledge of forethought. They know what's going on. The sugar companies knew what was going on.
And there's so many layers to that too. Like they have the whole advertising campaigns of all this. They get all the celebrities in on it, doing smoking a cigarette on the commercial or on the newspaper or the magazine. And just the way that, in the word you use is the system. It's this giant system of moving parts, and most of the people inside the system that are making this thing run are not evil people. Like, Callie Means is a perfect example. He was in there and he was just kind of, doing his job, and until he realized, wait, this is terrible. I need to get out of here and tell people what's actually going on. Like, people have just little enough responsibility within that behemoth that they don't feel guilty about it. And they're able to rationalize, the world's crazy. Maybe this company isn't, the best, but I need to feed my family because it's rough out here and inflation is so bad, which then traces all the way back to the Federal Reserve printing the money and feeding this whole thing through the Cantillon effect in the first place. They're the one passing the money down into those corporations who have the lobbying interests involved. It's just a giant mess.
Yeah. And there's always something happened before. You can always go back further and further and further. But right now, what we're dealing with is multinational corporations, multi-trillion-dollar corporations in both the food and drug industry that are profiting greatly off of human suffering. And most people involved in that don't realize that. The people working on the drugs and coming up with things. I mean, a lot of these people are thinking like, wow, I'm doing such great things. I'm figuring out medications and treatments and treating new diseases and all these sorts of things. But it's a product development business. Goldman Sachs, there's a leaked meeting from Goldman Sachs, and in one of the slides it said, is it a viable business model to cure disease, right? Or should we just perpetuate and treat the symptoms of the disease so that people can live with the disorder, and then we own them for life, right? Instead of curing something and getting rid of it, we just perpetuate it. Chris Rock called this in the 90s. I remember this in one of his stand-up specials. He said that, they're not trying to cure disease. They just want you to live with disease, because they profit off of it, and they don't want to cure anything. When was the last time they cured anything, right? They're still pissed about polio, they cure that. They're like, damn it, we just dried up our resources, but it's true. It is exactly true. And I think it was Callie Means that said this, or someone else who sort of, was saying about their experiences. I'm pretty sure it was Callie Means. And there was a pharmaceutical executive that was just sort of asked a rhetorical question, say, hey, do you know what my favorite drug is that our company makes? And they're like, oh, well, what? Something that cures cancer in babies, something nice like that. And like, no, my favorite drugs that our company produces are drugs that have side effects, that we have drugs that treat the side effects of. And so you have to be put on other things. He's like, I want to sell as many of these things as possible. And I want to sell drugs on top of drugs on top of drugs. These people are not our friends. We have to understand their motivations. Their motivations is to be profitable. And that's fine. But we need to understand that this is a product development marketplace. It doesn't work any better if the government does it, because guess what? The government wants money too. The government spends money too. It wants to save money. It wants to do things that earn it money, and it's using us as chattel and milking us and harvesting us every year with taxes. And they want to keep as much of that as possible, put that in their own pockets, put that in their friends' pockets, and be corrupt bastards. They're not trying to, we'll handle it better than they will. We'll fund it. No, they're just giving them control of the purse strings, and then they're gonna blow it in their own way. So that doesn't work either. What works is people understanding the system. They understand the game. They understand that these people are not necessarily trying to make you well. They're trying to perpetuate a disease state and just treat you symptomatically, which is important, because sometimes that's vital, and sometimes that symptom management can actually save your life. Diabetes is a good example of this. Taking metformin, taking insulin, taking these sorts of things does actually benefit your health and your life. But that should be a short